All right. Very, very big episode today. This is going to be the first interviews episode for Custom Journeys. I'm one of the co-hosts for Custom Journeys. My name is Andrew Baines.
My name's Eliseo Iglesias.
And like I said, we're the co-hosts of Custom Journeys. This podcast is all about empowering Black and Brown kids to pursue a career in STEM. Throughout this podcast, we provide a number of resources and also shared experiences of both ourselves, me and Eli, along with a lot of guests that we bring on. Very excited about today's guest. It's actually a former classmate of mine from University of Texas, San Antonio, former engineer or a fellow engineer and current entrepreneur, full-time entrepreneur for the NewGait device. So I'll go ahead and admit our guest, let our guest in, and then go ahead and get started into the episode.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Hello?
Yo, Benga.
Hello.
What's good, man? How you doing?
Hey. Doing good, doing good. How's it going, Andrew?
Going real good.
Hey, Eli.
Hi, Benga. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. So you got UTSA in the background?
Oh, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
nice.
I'm not sure. Yeah. I didn't know. I was going to ask this in an interview, what school did you go to? But yeah, no, this is a fellow Roadrunner. 3 Roadrunners in the house.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, man. Congrats on the podcast. I'm looking forward to the interview. Looking forward to hearing it when it comes out.
Yeah.
Thank you for making the time.
Oh, yeah, of course. No problem.
Hey, the goal of this podcast is really just kind of expose everybody to who you are, like your journey from early childhood to where you're at now. I guess the first question, we can kind of jump into it now, is, well, let me do a brief introduction first, foremost, so people actually know a little bit about you, and you can kind of fill in the blanks because you know your career a lot better than we do. But yeah, so I met Benga at the University of Texas, San Antonio. We're both mechanical engineering students, majors. Benga, I believe, was a track athlete, student athlete. I think we met in, I think it was either LSAMP or Mark Rise. It was some kind of program where you got paid to do research as an undergraduate student. And I think that's when I met you. You graduated, I think, about a year or two before me, went off into the professional world, worked in Chicago, worked in San Diego as well, I believe in the aerospace industry. And then along the way, I was kind of keeping tabs on your LinkedIn profile along the way. I saw you had made what was it, a speed maker, or you made a device? Made a device for like track athletes, high school track athletes, to help them train and get faster. And then along the way, you kind of pivoted that product and repurposed it for people that have like movement disorders or spinal cord injuries. And that's what you have now, the NewGait device with the nice product placement or product marketing in the background. But yeah, and then I think you've told me for the past 2 years now, you've been a full-time entrepreneur. So I think it's really cool that people can get a chance to see like, hey, you're a mechanical engineer, a professional engineer also, I've heard, or I've read, and then also a full-time entrepreneur. So you've kind of done a lot of different things, and you can kind of speak to the power of engineering or the power of pursuing a career in STEM. So really, we like to kind of go like in a chronological order. But before I do that, is there anything big I missed out or anything like that you want to share or add to the intro?
No, you pretty much covered it all, and everything else I'm sure we'll cover in the interview. So
nice.
Yeah, you covered it all.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll start from the beginning. From when I was younger, I really had an interest in math and science, and dating back to when I was just in grade school, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. The school I went to, we had science fair. Every kid had to participate in the science fair, starting at 2nd grade up through 8th grade. So I always participated in science fair. Always really interested in electricity and magnets and how things worked. And I was buying little toy cars, taking them apart, doing that whole deal. And that's what really kind of piqued my interest in science and in STEM in general. Back in middle school, I was in the Young Astronomers Club too, and we had these bottle rockets, and we would launch those off like twice a year, and I was always excited about doing that. And I even got in trouble one time when I accidentally launched one off in my room at home, and it burned my sheets.
Hey,
Parents did
you
not.
conducted an experiment. There's no
I
harm. Yeah.
did. I
Mm-hmm.
did.
Mm-hmm.
I conducted an experiment and found out what happened.
Mm-hmm.
That was an interesting little experiment
Yeah.
there.
It's no joke.
But yeah, I was always interested in engineering and how things worked, math and science. And when I got into high school, I entered this program for the summer called Prep, and it's actually started at UTSA, University of Texas at San Antonio, where I went to college. And it's a program for middle and high school kids who are interested in STEM. And it's essentially a program that allows them to get introduced to more STEM activities, and it really makes it fun over the summer. It's an 8-week long program. And so I started the end of my 8th grade year, and that's really what got me into wanting to go into engineering, because we would hear speakers on a daily basis, people just like you two who had already graduated and talked about what they were doing post graduation, and folks who are out in the field. So we got to hear the experiences of real life engineers, and then we also got the hands-on experience and the classroom experience. So the prep program was a huge opportunity for me to really deep dive into engineering and into that space. And so that's really what kind of got me started at the beginning, was prep. And then from there, I graduated from high school, and I actually had a mentorship program in high school where every kid was assigned to go find a mentor for a whole semester, someone who's in a field that you're interested in, and pretty much shadow them. And so I got in contact actually with an engineer over at Southwest Research Institute, and I was able to shadow him for a semester. And he worked in engine testing. And so it was, to me, like, I had never seen anything like that before, up close, that type of facility. They're a world-renowned facility.
Yeah.
And that even further motivated my interest to go into engineering as a major in college.
All right. I have 2 follow-ups, if I may, Andrew. But no, first, did you grow up here in San Antonio?
I did. Yeah. So originally I'm from Corpus Christi, Texas, but only lived there a couple years, and then my parents moved to San Antonio, where I was raised.
Okay. So you know who Selena is. All right. Second question. Second question. I only been to Corpus once, and I really wanted to go again after COVID's over, or a little bit better, to visit the museum. But anyway, the second comment I had is that you mentioned that a lot of your development came from these programs that maybe you didn't have a choice in getting involved with. But I would say it sounds like it was a part of the curriculum. They're part of the curriculum.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, it absolutely was.
Okay. Fantastic.
I want to kind of move on to your student athlete experience and how, like, the whole different set of challenges that brought, right? Running track and being an engineering major. But real quick, so it sounds like you had like a good amount of experience or a good amount of exposure before even getting to UTSA, as far as like what engineering is and kind of what to expect. I'm curious to know, how did, based on your initial impressions of engineering, like based on your mentorship program and being in prep, how did being the actual engineer or going through the engineering college, like how did that compare to your pre-college perception of what engineering was? Was it harder? Was it the same? Was it, just kind of in general?
Yeah. So pre-college, my experience, it helped my college experience, because at the time we were doing more advanced classes in math and science. And so that then helped transition into the college work. But I mean, once you get into college, the work is a lot harder. It's a lot more work. And so I was, kind of expecting that because that's just what you hear. That's the stereotype, is that, engineering school is not easy. It's hard. And
Yeah.
so I wasn't going into it expecting it to be easy. And so I was, fully prepared for it to be difficult. And it definitely proved to be difficult, especially that first year. And so you alluded to me being a student athlete. And so I ran track in high school, and then I got recruited to UTSA to run track.
Okay.
And
Nice.
Wow.
and so, yeah, thanks. And so that was definitely a challenge, especially that first year, my freshman year, because I was not, one of these, well decorated type of athletes who's on the full ride scholarship. And so
Okay.
I didn't have the full ride. And so
Mm.
in addition to track, I was also having to work a part-time job. And
Oh, wow.
so throughout school, throughout college, I was working a part-time job to help, cover schooling and, cost of living and that kind of thing. And so, going into it, I not only was, running track freshman year and working a part-time job, but there was this little NCAA loophole or rule that I didn't know about when I accepted my scholarship, that said that I couldn't then accept this other type of scholarship that the university was going to award, which actually was a larger scholarship than what I accepted for the athletic side. And
Wow.
so I ended up, unbeknownst to me, turning down some money on the academic side for some athletic scholarship that wasn't the same amount.
Yeah.
Both of my parents, they're both immigrants from Nigeria. They moved out here for college, for academic reasons and academic scholarships. And so neither of them knew the whole NCAA and athletic scene out here.
Yeah.
Gotcha. No, this is something that me and Andrew, we talk about a lot, and that is the lack of resources as far as advising. Because I bet you if maybe someone was looking over your shoulder, looking over your paperwork, they might have caught that. And that would have
Absolutely.
helped you out tremendously. We're talking about money. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were one more question? What were some aspects of your K through 12 education that might have helped you in your first year in engineering at UTSA? Were there anything in terms of academically that prepared you to face a rigorous engineering track?
Well, I mean, I did take, like the dual credit and the AP classes in high school, and so I did that, and I think I got some credit, some college credit for some of the classes that I took in high school in my junior and senior year. So that I wish I had maybe taken that more seriously or known the repercussions a little bit more, because you can take free dual credit courses
Mm-hmm.
in high
Yeah.
school,
Mm-hmm.
and that will translate to
Mm-hmm.
college credit that you pay for
Mm-hmm.
in
And so
college.
also means dollar signs. Yep. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
highlight, because I had a feeling you had to have taken AP classes in order to get ready for an engineering course. Because I have a similar experience, Andrew as well. You almost have to take extra courses in high school to get ready for the college course. It's like you have to take college courses in high school. And so that's something I wanted to highlight. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'd like to go back real quick. You said the NCAA, you mentioned them. It's really surprising to hear that they wouldn't even let you like take that academic scholarship. Because you hear about guys, right? A lot of times with football and the NCAA, like, oh, they signed some jerseys and they gave them away, or they charged for them or whatever, and like they got to be suspended or deactivated for however long. But that's really like discouraging that even like there were some academic scholarships that you have to be really mindful about. And of course, I'm assuming that if you could take the more academic money, you would have done that and maybe even just walked on to track team or something like that if you could have. But yeah,
Yeah.
real quick. Oh, go ahead. Do you have
No,
anything?
so you actually you alluded to something. And so freshman year, I took the athletic money and I ran track my first year. And first year in college, engineering, I'm not gonna lie, my grades suffered. They suffered as a result.
What were you
And
taking first year, by the way? Do you remember? I know it's we getting up there in age, so it's not like, oh, it was just 5 years ago. But
it was back in 06.
It's all right. I don't see any gray hairs.
It was it was, I remember I was taking like calc 1, I believe.
okay,
Calculus 1. Yeah, at that
okay,
time.
okay,
And then like intro to engineering, and then some other courses. I honestly, I don't remember exactly what I was taking, but
that's fair.
I remember calc 1, that grade suffered. It suffered quite a bit. And
Okay.
so what I actually ended up doing was quitting the team for my sophomore year.
Wow.
So yeah, a lot of people don't know, but I ended up quitting the team my sophomore year to help focus on my grades. And so I really wanted to make sure that I was doing things the right way, especially after the experience with being denied an academic scholarship because I had to take the athletic scholarship.
Yeah.
And so I made the decision to walk away from the team my sophomore year with the intention of coming back my junior year.
Okay.
And so yeah, I did that, and I kind of buckled down, focused on my grades sophomore year, and got my grades back up, and got more academic money.
Nice.
And talked to the coach, and he agreed to allow me to walk on the team because I just wanted to walk on because I had some academic scholarships that were going to be more than what I would have gotten athletically.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. So real quick, man, we didn't even, you got to tell us what you ran. Like you 200, 400, it was sprinter, 100. What you doing?
I was a short sprinter. So I was the 100, 200 outdoors, and then indoors the 60 and the 200. Yeah. So I was a sprinter.
Okay.
For those in San Antonio, I went to Taft High School, or Communications Arts technically, which is the magnet school over there. But for those of you in San Antonio natives who might know.
For any track athletes listening, like what's a decent like 100, 200 time to like think about aiming for if you're trying to get like a scholarship?
So yeah, if you're trying to get a scholarship to say a UTSA, so UTSA is D1. For a school like that, you're gonna want to run at least a 10.8, maybe a 10.8, 10.7 seconds in the 100 in high school to get on and get a scholarship to UTSA. For 200, you're going to want to run probably about 22 flat.
Okay.
To get some sort of financial assistance to go on the team. Yeah, their standards may have risen since the last time I was there. Like UTSA's got a really good track program, and so they've been getting better since the year before I joined. They were winning conference championships regularly.
Gotcha.
Regularly, yeah.
I got one other like scholarship question. So you mentioned that there were some academic scholarships you got before you decided to walk back on your sophomore and junior year. What are some of those different scholarships that you received or that you applied for?
Yeah, so you had alluded to LSAMP earlier in this conversation. So LSAMP is a research-based, I believe it's a grant program that allows or encourages minorities to get into research. And so that was one of the scholarships / grants that I was awarded when I was in college. There were I think a few other like UTSA engineering scholarships. So one word of advice for anyone college age or high school going into college is look for scholarship money. And if you're already in college, or if you know what college you're going to, look at the Department of blah, 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 whether
Yeah.
it's engineering or even more specifically mechanical engineering or electrical engineering. Look at your department or your college's resources website, because they have a ton of money out there, and they're looking to give it away. They have to give out this money. And so a lot of times they don't get enough people to apply, or they don't get quality applicants. And so look for that money and put in a good application. Look for the ones that require an essay, because that's what people don't want to do. People don't want to write
Yeah.
essays, but if you do and you write a good one, you can get some scholarship money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like to highlight, I always told, in our previous conversation with Andrew, I told him, don't be, as a college student, I was always afraid to knock on doors, especially with the admins, the chair of the department. Don't be.
Yeah.
It is their job to service the needs academically of the students. And so don't be afraid to go and get to know the admins, the chair of the department. They're there to serve you, right? So, yes, look through the website, but at times I find it that going in person can be just as effective.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. My strategy was kind of the same as yours, Benga. I know exactly like where they printed out and posted the departmental scholarship. They were in like the AET building on the second floor in that little corner right by the dean's office. And I knew on the website like where to go. And it was like every springtime they posted them. I was like, yo, I had a system down pat by like probably about my sophomore, junior year. And like I kind of think I was thinking along the same lines as you. And to me, it seemed like there's no way a lot of people are applying for these, because I think you were at like some of the scholarship reception dinners around the same time as
Probably.
me. Yeah, and I was like, it's always the same people, and I'm like, there's no way that like all 2,000 or 5,000 students are applying to these, and it's the same people getting them like every year. So, yeah, people, if you're listening, you definitely got to take advantage of like the scholarships inside your college, but even more specific to your department of mechanical engineering, electrical, or computer science, or whatever. So that's a really great advice that you gave everybody just now. Eli, did you have any follow-up questions or anything to add?
Yeah, Benga. I wanted to dive a little bit deeper through your sophomore year, junior year, senior year in undergrad, because one thing we always end up discussing with Andrew is some misconceptions about the STEM journey. That at times we feel it takes the singular genius that walks through the program and everything goes well, and you end up with a good job afterwards immediately. And so I really like to speak to the adversity we all face going through these tracks. And it sounds like, you just mentioned, sophomore year, you're struggling in your classes and you had to make a tough call. So you want, if you would like, you could go into that adversity, any other types of adversity you faced, trying to, get through engineering.
Yeah, I think anyone who's going through engineering in school suffers some adversity. It's not easy. Going through it, yeah, getting an engineering degree is not at all easy. I mean, there's late nights, you're working on on school projects, you're doing homework, meanwhile you got, these, I'm not gonna name majors, but you got X major over here who's just, playing out in the quad and doing this, and you see your friends who don't really have any any homework to do.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you've got differential equations and thermodynamics and X, Y, and Z, and you've got to make the decision to either not go to the party, or not do this and get your work done. And so there were countless times where it was difficult, and I'm in the lab working on work till 10 p.m. because I just got off of I had a another class that got out at 8:30, and so I'm headed from that class straight into the lab to get work done. And so you just got to keep persevering with that.
No, yeah, thank you. No, that was really good, Benga. I like to give the example that professional athletes, they had to go through the grind to get what they got.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking to the preachers to the choir here, but they weren't there just by pure talent. They worked hard, and it's the same thing with engineering and other STEM majors. it takes the grind to really succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't have done it alone. I've got to give props to my career counselor. So, I mentioned I didn't have a counselor back in high school, but in college, I don't know if you guys also had Audrey.
Oh yeah,
But
Audrey. Yeah, she was great.
yeah.
Right
I
before
mean,
Otis came on. Yeah.
she was amazing. I remember she helped me out and a bunch of students with finding internships or navigating classes and things like that. And so another big thing that I want to mention are internships.
Mhm.
And especially when you're in college, you want to make sure that you are able to secure an internship, because when you go out for the real world and you try to get a job, that's your only opportunity for real world experience. And so Audrey actually introduced me to this research based internship called REU, Research Experience for Undergraduates. And I I remember my junior year, I think it was the summer before my junior year, I applied to a bunch of them. It must have been like 14 or 15. And I got lucky. I got into one of them, and it was like one of the highest paying ones too. So I was stoked about that.
Nice.
So they would pay us to do research, at another campus. And so for me, that was great, because I was born and raised in San Antonio, lived there, and now I had this internship opportunity at Washington State University, which is where my first REU was. So I got to experience another state, experience research for the first time. I got to do research on composites, composite fibers, and do some testing. And
Nice.
yeah, I had a blast, learned a lot, and made a ton of good friends.
Awesome. So that happened summer before your junior year. Were you still running track at this time? Like going into your junior year, were you still running track?
Oh yeah. So kind of
Okay.
going back to that story. So freshman year I ran, sophomore year I took a year off. I,
Yeah.
I came back junior year and I ran just for my junior year, and then I ended up quitting for good.
Hmm.
So my goal from the get go was to win a championship ring. On my recruiting trip, they had just won their first championship, and the coach, he showed me the ring, and I was like, "Ooh,
Let me
I
get
want
one of
one of
those.
those. I
Yeah.
want one of those." And in order to win a championship ring, first of all, the team has to, win the championship.
Yeah.
But just you don't get a ring just for being on the team. You have to contribute, and so you have to score. And in track, if you want to score, you have to finish in the finals, in the top 8.
Okay.
And so freshman year, I missed out on that by 2/100ths of a second. I
Oh
was two
wow.
one hundredths of a second too slow, and I
Yeah.
missed out on the finals. And so I did not get a championship ring. The team did win. We did win, so that was cool. But I did not earn a championship ring. And
Hmm.
so I knew when I quit the first time after freshman year that I wanted to come back and I wanted to win the championship. And so, took sophomore year off, come back junior year. Coach says I can walk on. I've got an academic scholarship that's helping to pay for some of the bills. And we ended up winning the indoor championship, and I ended up placing in the finals and scoring. And so
Nice.
I finally reached my goal of earning a championship ring. So at that point, I said, you know what, I'm good. I'm at this point, I've really got to make a decision whether I want to continue to work more and put more hours into that, or continue on the track team. And I accomplished my goal. And so I bowed out for the last time.
Okay.
Uh,
And so,
um,
so
um,
that was junior year.
wow, that's quite a journey already. I'm curious though, Benga, did you continue to train during your off year, that sophomore year, on your own
Oh
time?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was training
Wow.
5, 6 days a week. on my own.
Yeah.
At that point.
That takes a lot of self-discipline.
Yeah, I had a goal.
Mm-hmm.
I had a goal, so I knew what I wanted.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I think you displayed a lot of good qualities throughout your from freshman year to junior year. You self-discipline, like Eli hit on, commitment, working hard, time management, like,
Grinding.
yeah, grinding it out. I mean, I think even like just I think a lot of people have the perception that student athletes are like, they're all here on a free ride. People are helping them with their homework. Like they don't really have to work as hard as like we do on the academic side of things. But just hearing like part of your story, you really see that, hey, that's not always the case, or that's not the case for a lot of students. So the fact that you can speak to majoring in engineering, working a job, and being a student athlete, but throughout all that, still prioritizing like what was your specific goal, and that was to be an engineer, and graduate with good grades. I think that's really, really important to highlight. So by this point, you're getting ready to go into your senior year. So you're getting ready to go through the hell of senior design, right? And all the stress that
Yeah.
entails. So let's get into your senior year and then getting ready to graduate and finding your first job. So kind of how did that senior year kind of finish out, and how did you end up finding your first engineering job out of college?
Yeah, senior year in engineering school, you're almost looking for a job out out of the gate. People are looking for jobs in like September, October, if they graduate in May. So, that's a long horizon. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, senior year, it went well. I was really just kind of focused on finding a job. And so, I just come off of my last internship. And so I felt pretty good where I had some decent amount of experience. I was not the best student. And so for me, I always held, a little bit over a 3.0, especially because that was like the threshold for a lot of scholarships. So my goal was like, okay, I need to make sure that my GPA doesn't dip below
Yeah.
the the 3.0 standard. And so yeah, and really just kind of focusing on the classes that I wanted to take. By senior year, you're taking a lot of electives, so a lot of classes that I was more interested in, as well as the senior design. And so yeah, it's senior year as a whole went pretty smoothly. And by spring semester, I was really deep into the job hunt. And so I remember looking at the UTSA job board and just looking at all the different jobs, and I was applying like crazy. And so I did that. I went to the NSBE convention. My senior year. This was in like the March timeframe, and
I'm sorry.
interviewed with
What is the NSBE convention for the folks at home that
Oh,
don't know?
yes, yes, yeah. So for folks who don't know, NSBE is the National Society of Black Engineers, and they have chapters at all levels of age, really. From NSBE Junior, which handles the elementary, middle, high school level. There's NSBE Collegiate, and then there's even NSBE Professional for those who have graduated and gone on to a career. And so the NSBE annual convention, I believe, has the largest career center or job center in for all of the conferences on the collegiate level. And so, yeah, walking in there, it's just like a huge convention center of all of these different companies all lined up looking to hire. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's just like the ideal place for any collegiate looking to get an engineering job or any STEM job, really. And so I ended up actually getting my first interview through the UTSA job board with a company called Navistar that's based up in the Chicago area. So I actually interviewed with them over the phone in addition to me having a bunch of different interviews with other companies at the NESB convention.
Okay.
But the one I got through the UTSA job board ended up being the job that I got out of college. And so Navistar, they did a phone interview, then they flew me up to Chicago, did an interview up there, and then I got the job offer. That was my first job offer, and it was more money than I'd ever seen on the offer letter. So I was like, "You got a deal."
Cool.
So I took it. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So
go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say the second half of my spring semester was very stress-free because I had already secured a job. So
Nice.
that was really big for me.
What year did you graduate? Your undergrad?
I graduated in 2011, and so it was just a couple years out from the big financial crash.
Gotcha. No, that's very. I mean, you worked hard, but you're a little bit fortunate because I remember that year. I graduated that year as well. And I remember a lot of my peers had trouble finding jobs, but they didn't start looking until the spring. So there you go. Yeah, too late. It's too late there. Yeah. What I was going to ask you? The UTSA. So full disclosure, I didn't go to UTSA for undergrad. I'm going there for grad school in mechanical engineering. So some of the folks you reference, I don't remember or don't know. But the UTSA Career Jobs Board, was that an online resource or was it a literal board that was available in the department?
Oh, it was an online resource.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So it was just a virtual job board that UTSA had. And I believe it had it for, all jobs in general, not just engineering, but you were, obviously able to filter out. And so I was always on there, always checking for new jobs.
Refreshing.
Exactly. Yep. So I'm sure they have that or something even better now. They probably can give you alerts straight to your phone or something by now.
I think so. Or now there's probably a LinkedIn page now, probably. No, I mean, finding a job, that in of itself is a grind. So kudos to you to grind on that as well.
Appreciate it.
So you get your first job at Navistar. What were you doing, or what was that job title at Navistar?
Yeah, so the job title was product development engineer. And they, at the time, they hired, like 150 new hires right out of college because they were on a hiring spree. They were expanding at that time. And so as long as you were willing to move to Chicago, they were hiring a bunch of engineers. And so I was a product development engineer. And what I was actually doing was a little bit of project engineering, not much design work, but mainly project engineering. So working with different engineers, like the manufacturing engineers, working with design engineers, and making sure that things are running smoothly at that point. So I did that for the majority of the time, and then for a while, I did do some actual design work.
Okay.
So that was a management position, more or less.
Oh, no, not at all management.
Okay.
Yeah, more so yeah, project engineering. So just kind of coordinating things and helping the actual project managers.
Okay, understood. Thank
you.
And
to your question, Andrew, the industry was automotive. Gotcha. So Navistar is a company that makes large diesel engines as well as heavy duty trucks.
Okay.
And also some military trucks as well.
Gotcha. And so how long did you end up staying at Navistar? And I know you became a PE, a professional engineer, along the way. Was that at Navistar or later on in the story?
So it was a little later on in the story. I stayed at Navistar just for 2 years. Okay. Shortly after I got hired, the company was not doing so well. They had made a different decision in terms of some technology that didn't pan out. And so stock price started tumbling and they started doing a lot of layoffs. And I jumped ship before I got thrown out pretty much.
Gotcha.
So So I found a new job out in San Diego in the aerospace industry. And so I ended up coming out, which is where I'm at now, moving out to San Diego. And I started working as a weight engineer with an aerospace company out here. And so ended up doing that for a couple of years, still not a PE,
All right.
still not a PE. I worked there for 2 years, and towards the end of the second year is when I started really looking into becoming a professional engineer, because I saw that that could help with career advancement in other industries, as well as around this time is when I was actually developing the Speedmaker. And so I was just thinking that, okay, if I've got, this track and field background, and then if I combine that with not just being an engineer, but being a licensed professional engineer, that might give me a little bit more weight, or, have my name carry a little bit more weight to it.
You get
And
a rubber
so,
stamp.
exactly.
Stamp engineering paper with, yeah.
Exactly. I get the stamp. And so started studying for it towards the end of my time at that aerospace company. Ended up moving jobs to a utilities company as a project manager. And 4 months into that is when I took the test, passed the test, and then became a professional engineer at that point.
Okay.
Wow. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a big feat. But to back up a little bit, before you got you initiated your PE, you have to get your FE. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. I almost forgot about that. Yeah. Yeah. So I felt like I got lucky, because at UTSA, the FE, at least at the time, was really encouraged. And in your senior year, it was talked about, like, okay, here's your FE exam, everyone's gonna study for it, everyone's gonna take it. And then, fast forward to when I became a professional, that wasn't the experience for everyone at other universities. So yeah, at UTSA, pretty much everyone took the FE exam. And so I took it in my senior year, which you can do. Some people, if you don't take it in college, you can take it out, once you're a professional. But I got lucky. I took it in college and I passed it. So I became an EIT in the state of Texas.
And that's engineering training.
Engineering training, exactly. Yes. And so that is a requirement for becoming a PE, or a professional engineer.
Is it still a 5-year requirement before you can apply for a PE, or has that changed?
I believe it's state by state for the PE license, and in the state of California, it was a 3-year requirement.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay. 3-year requirement as long as you had your EIT.
Right. And you have to work in industry for that amount of time, I think, right? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, you have to work in industry. You've got to get references. They've got to validate what you've done as an engineer to show that you have actually been an engineer.
Gotcha.
And so, there's a process to it.
Gotcha. And can you explain really quickly, what are the advantages of grinding for that PE?
Yeah. For me, it was about career advancement. There are some industries in which you need a PE in order to move forward. And so for me, I was moving into the utilities industry. And in that industry, at least at the company I'm in, or I was in, becoming a PE was highly looked upon. And those with a PE could advance past those without a PE. And then
by advancement, you also mean salary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Salary and
I just want to make. I want you to say the key word there: salary. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. You can make a lot more if you're a PE.
Fantastic.
And so yeah, that, as well as just having a little bit more credibility to my name, especially with the business that I was going towards with the Speedmaker.
Right. No, I've known faculty members. So I took the FE, but I went the academic route. So I don't necessarily need a PE. to go where I'm going. However, folks in the industry do sometimes, a lot of the time, need a PE. And I've known faculty members with a PE that also do consulting work. And so it really opens up opportunities alongside with your engineering degree to not just do an industry work or academic work. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Okay. So you mentioned along the way while you're getting this PE, you really started to try to develop your idea for the speed maker. And this is probably one of the parts I'm like really excited to hear about. So can you kind of give us a story of like how the speed maker came about, what the speed maker is, and then I guess how it eventually developed into what we now know as the NewGait device?
Yes, absolutely. So the story of the speed maker kind of started really at my first job. The first job out of college. I was, expecting engineering to be one thing, like, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to go design stuff, I'm going to build stuff, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then I get into my first job and I'm not doing really any of that stuff.
Excel spreadsheets
I'm doing a lot of Excel spreadsheets. If I'm doing any design work, it's like I'm creating a bracket here and then I'm modifying a bracket. I'm not designing an airplane, I'm not designing a car and an engine, I'm designing a bracket. And so it wasn't as exciting as I was hoping. However, I'm not trying to discourage anyone from engineering because I believe getting an engineering degree and going through an engineering job helps prepare you for a lot of things, including entrepreneurship, which I'll touch on a little bit more. But with my first job, it just wasn't what I was expecting. So I moved on, found a new job. That job also wasn't like I was expecting. And so then I'm like, okay, maybe it isn't the job. Maybe it's me. Maybe I just want to do something else. And so I thought one day and I was like, all right, what do I love to do? What do I want to do? And I was like, all right, I have a passion for engineering and I have a passion for track and field. How can I combine these two passions together? So I started coaching youth track and I got back into track and field. And so I was doing that. And then while doing that, I saw, man, these kids could really use something to help them to train to run faster. And so that's when the wheel started spinning about developing some sort of device that could help people train to run faster. So then I started thinking, okay, what kind of device would it be? All right, something that utilizes resistance bands. All right, well, I want it to be wearable. I don't want it to attach to something. I don't want you to be anchored down to something. And so then I was like, all right, when I was in track, what part of my musculature was the strongest, when I was the fastest, and it was the hip extensors, your hamstrings, your glutes. So then I'm just in my head thinking, okay, how can I help to develop those? Okay, I could provide resistance to that hip extension movement. All right, if I do that, then I would be providing assistance to the opposite movement, your hip flexion, hip flexors. So all these things are kind of going through my head. Eventually, I start prototyping a device that was wearable, completely wearable, that would essentially just have a couple of elastic bands on the front part of the thigh. They would attach to a waist belt down to two leg straps that are connected right above the knee. And so that would help bring the knee up. If you have an elastic band on that part, it helps to flex the hip or bring the knee up, which then provides resistance in the opposite direction. So the whole premise of the device was to have this type of device wearable for a sprinter or an athlete to run in, to sprint in, to really help strengthen their muscles. So that was the premise of it. Long story, but I ended up, prototyping, making different iterations here and there, finding manufacturing, finding sourcing for the raw materials, getting it manufactured, and ended up with a device I called the Speed Maker, and got this device out into the market. It ended up in the hands of a physical therapist in Michigan, and she started using it on a spinal cord injury patient. So this patient had fallen from a ladder on her farm, shattered one of her vertebrae, and was told by her surgeon that she was never going to walk again. Well, out of surgery, she's in physical therapy. She's able to walk again, but it looks pretty bad. You know, it's not the prettiest walk. She's got two canes and she's really wobbly. And she kind of plateaued in physical therapy. She didn't get any better. So the physical therapist starts using this device on her, and immediately it helps her out tremendously in her balance and her coordination and her ability to walk steadily. So they keep training in it. You know, she keeps putting it on her, and she keeps training in it, keeps training in it. And eventually this young lady went from, you know, being told she was never going to walk again, and then she started walking and being told, okay, well, you can walk, but you're never going to run again. Well, fast forward 6 months later, she's able to not only run, but she competes and runs in a 5K race alongside her physical therapist who helped her train this whole time.
Nice.
And so it was just, I mean, that whole progression was incredible to see. And along the way, there were a host of other patients who this physical therapist started using the product on, using our Speed Maker on. I mean, it got to the point where her employer ended up buying a whole bunch of Speed Makers because it was helping, and, you know, dispersing it amongst his different clinics.
Gotcha.
And so at that point we knew we had something. And so eventually we ended up pivoting from the Speed Maker and the athletic product into the rehab market, and really focusing on this physical therapy device, which we branded as NewGait.
Gotcha. Nice. Yeah, that's powerful, man. Now I think it's really interesting. Number one, how you use your engineering skills to kind of go through the whole like product development phase, right? Like you had to go through, okay, what is my problem that I'm trying to solve? And then you had to think about different ways of approaching that, and then had to go through the manufacturing, sourcing, all of that. So I mean, I think that's like a whole nother episode in itself. But that's really unique to see like how you put your skills to practice. Because I think, not like you said, not to discourage anybody who may be thinking about engineering or STEM, but sometimes things don't work out or they're not as exciting as you thought. And I think you have to look for particular opportunities. The opportunities are out there. You just got to look for them where you can actually be excited and interested. And I love how you mixed, or how you were able to use your engineering skills with your passion for track, and solve problems that way. And then they were even more beneficial to people because you're helping people with spinal cord injuries and stroke patients and whatnot. So that's really interesting. Eli, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, Benga, there's an amazing story, and credit to you too, using what you learned and your own grind to get this done, and seek out these opportunities, and develop it on your own. You know, not a whole lot of people have that proactive attitude towards their career. So all I wanted to say is that, Andrew, the name of the show is Custom Journeys. So, I mean, we want to highlight how sometimes these journeys aren't a straight line. So sometimes, you're working in a career, doesn't work out, you're not interested, or you fall all in love with it. You know, that's okay. That's okay. The point is, and I think, Benga, you correct me if I'm wrong, you know, the point is that you're bringing up is that the skills you learned, you can apply to almost anything that you put your desire to, your motivation to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the journey that I went through in terms of my professional engineering journey has helped tremendously in entrepreneurship. I mean, I wouldn't give it up at all, you know, for the world, in terms of the things that I learned both in school as an engineering student, as well as on the job, and my professional experiences. They've helped, you know, a ton in terms of helping guide my current company and helping me along this whole entrepreneurial journey. So I don't want to at all discourage anyone from engineering, obviously, because even if you look at regardless of what you want to do, you don't have to be an entrepreneur. You can if you want to do the 9 to 5, that's fine. But regardless of what you want to do, major in STEM. That's going to help you regardless of whether you want to get a job or you want to start a business, start a company. Like, major in engineering.
You're here.
And I think one of the things to highlight or piggyback off of that point is like just the number of challenges that you went throughout your engineering like experience, your college experience, and then as an engineer. Like I feel like that entire part of your journey really probably prepped you for the challenges of entrepreneurship, like the time management, the problem solving skills and things of that nature. If you could kind of summarize your experience starting out as an entrepreneur, how was that experience, and how did you fund this this product or this business on your own, just with like money that you kind of saved from your job, or how was that experience like overall?
Yeah. So I side hustled for a while. I started the business while I was still working, my
Okay.
full-time job for a long while. It was started in 2015 February 2015 is when I started prototyping. And then I didn't quit my job until April of 2019.
Okay.
And so it was a long grind, a 4-year grind of having a regular job, regular 9 to 5, but then also on the side, prototyping, sourcing, finding manufacturing, and then setting up and running a business. And so it was, definitely was not easy, but it was something that I started doing as a side hustle, and it was all self-funded. So I was working, saving some money that I put into the business. So it was all self-funded for a while. We didn't raise our first money until it was early 2020. Yeah. A little over a year ago is when we raised just a small friends and family round. Okay. And so we're still primarily self-funded, but we have raised a small friends and family round.
All right. Nice. And so you're a full-time entrepreneur now. What are I'm imagining that comes with a whole new set of challenges, right? You're talking about funding. Automatically my mind goes to like Shark Tank, right? Like you got to do like seed rounds, depending on like how big you're trying to get your company to be. So I guess what is your experience now as a full-time entrepreneur, and where do you kind of see yourself taking the company in the future?
Yeah. Making that decision to go full-time was not easy. And, I definitely could not have predicted that a year later we would be in this, global coronavirus lockdown. I did not see that coming at all. But it was a huge decision that I made, but it was something that had to be done because I just needed more time to focus on the business. And so I kind of planned it out for a while in terms of when I wanted to quit my job. And it's been a huge blessing since. I mean, being your own boss is definitely something that I excel at and I thrive in. It's not easy at all. It isn't easy because you have to be self-disciplined, self-motivated. It's actually probably 10 times harder than just going to a job where you can just kind of clock in, clock out. Because I'm completely, self-reliant on everything, because when you're talking your own business and we're still in startup mode, we're still in, scrappy mode, I'm doing the financials. At one point I was doing our taxes. I'm doing product development, product design, sales, marketing. Like I had my hands in everything.
Yeah.
Now we've expanded a little bit and I have my hands in less things, but it's still a whole lot more than what I would be doing had I just stayed at my previous job. And so it has been amazing, and I'm loving it, but it's not for the faint of heart. Let me put it that way.
Gotcha. I got two quick questions, Eli, if you don't mind. Number one,
go ahead.
Can I, if I wanted to, or if I'm a high school student, or if I'm a college football athlete getting ready for the combine, or the combine already happened, or would have happened if it wasn't a pandemic, could I buy a speed maker right now, or would I just buy the NewGait and just train with it as is, or how does that work?
Yeah, so for right now, we've actually shelved the athletic product for now,
Okay.
because as a startup, you want to make sure that you're extremely focused in what you're doing. And for a while, we were selling both products, but we quickly learned that we had to focus in on a single market. And so for us, we chose the rehab market because of the impact that it was having on individuals. And so right now, as an athlete, we don't have a product for athletes just yet. However, the eventual vision of the company is we've got this rehab device for folks who have really debilitating conditions or diseases like spinal cord injury, post-stroke, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, things like that. Our next iteration or our next planned product is going to be a pediatric type device. And then we want to get into more of the sports rehab market, and then eventually come back to the sports performance market. Okay. And so we eventually want to come back to that speed maker type device.
I have maybe two last questions. I know I said I had two more last time, but I guess this one is more of like a summary question, kind of for your long-term vision for the company. So what is your like long-term vision of success? I think you did a great job of mapping out, hey, we're going to focus on spinal cord, post-stroke, then we're going to move on to pediatric, and then so on and so forth. But what do you kind of define success at for the NewGait device? And what do you hope the NewGait device to become? Like just widely adopted? Do you hope to like build the company to a certain point and then sell it? What are you kind of hoping will be the long-term vision for the company?
Yeah. So that's a great question. My vision and our vision at NewGait is really for our products to be the standard of care in the physical rehabilitation market. So what does that mean? That means that any physical therapist, around the country that you speak to will know about the NewGait and will either use it or have it in his or her clinic. We want the NewGait to be as synonymous with physical therapy as something like it's called a BAPS board. It's pretty much one of those like balance type boards that has like a little ball in the middle, and it's a circular board, and it allows someone to practice their balance. So one of these types of things is very, very common within the physical therapy environment. And so, you talk to any physical therapist, BAPS board, they're going to know what you're talking about. And so we want to have that sort of name recognition and that sort of notoriety with NewGait, because we know what our product can do in terms of helping people and getting people to get back on their feet and get back to being mobile again. And so we want our products to be as known in the physical therapy industry as something like a BAPS board.
I like that you identified that you want to be the standard of care. I guess my last follow-up question would be, what do you need for that to happen? Is it more of a marketing problem? What have you guys kind of identified as like, hey, we need to do this to reach this level of success?
Yeah. So there are a couple main things that we need to do in order to get to where we need to get. The first is actually research. So we're actively searching for research partners, and we're in talks with a couple researchers to get more research done, because a lot of physical therapists won't even look at you unless you have numbers behind, data behind what you do. You've got to have that research done. And most physicians won't even, talk to you unless you have that. And so that's one of the biggest obstacles for us currently. And then two is really, the same challenge that most young startups and a lot of, just other companies face, is really how do you get your product and your messaging out to the people that you need to get it out to, and how do you get more people to really know about your product. And so we're doing a lot of different marketing strategies currently to help us get our name out there, because we know that there are a lot of both patients and clinicians who could really, really benefit from this product. It's just a matter of finding them and hitting them with the right messaging. So research and then marketing.
Nice.
We'll try to help you with that second part, Benga. Promise.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully. So Eli, I don't really have anything else on my plate. I did have, I guess we call it our homework questions that we ask all the guests about resources or scholarships. But before I get into that, Eli, did you have any other questions, final questions for?
No, I mean, just a comment, Benga. It's an inspiring story, and I share a lot of similar experiences, even though I'm not an entrepreneur, although this podcast is kind of our entrepreneurial endeavor. But I'm considering myself an academic. I'm a PhD student. But I feel a kinship, as an engineer. I also took the FE, right? But if it wasn't for your proactive drive, all that networking that you were able to do for the product, for NewGait and for SpeedMaker would not have been possible. And I think that drive, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to overstep my bounds, but I think that drive, I can sense that from K through 12, your K through 12 experiences. And I feel as though that experience fed into what you did after college with the youth program, coaching the youth. And tell me if I'm wrong, I bet that had something to do with it. Your experiences in K through 12, right?
Yeah. No, it absolutely did. I mean, I wanted to, kind of give back and really mentor the youth, both on the track and field level, but then even also on the academic level with NSBE, which we didn't necessarily touch on in terms of my involvement with NSBE as a professional, but that's also something that I'm really prideful in, is really kind of giving back, because NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers, has really helped pave the way for me in terms of my engineering success as a collegiate. And then so giving back on the professional level to those both collegiate and younger has been something that I really strive on as well.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Benga, this has been really, really great, but you're not done yet. So we try to highlight different resources, really talk about different scholarship opportunities that are available. And then also just it could be a nonprofit that you know of. It could be NSBE, really. That's a really great one. I know people that share a similar story to you as far as finding their first job, or not even their first job, but their first interviews coming from NSBE conventions. So I kind of give you the opportunity to highlight any scholarship or resource that you think would be beneficial to any students or young professionals.
Yeah, so I've got a resource that I wrote down, and this is going to be an interesting one. And since this is a podcast, I've got a resource that is another podcast, actually.
All right,
so
nice.
It's called
Not allowed.
It's called
Go ahead.
I know how you gonna give us a resource as a competition? Benga? No, I'm joking. Let's do it.
All good. No,
I'm all
tell
for
us. No, tell us.
It's Motley Fool Money. So
okay.
it's a podcast that's all about the financial systems, really. And so one thing that isn't taught in schools that I'm also passionate about is, your financial education. They don't, there's courses in school for engineering and math and science, which is great, but there's no courses for, how do you manage money? What are stocks? What are bonds?
Mm-hmm.
And so this podcast is one that I've been listening to for a while that makes it a little bit more engaging, a little bit more fun in terms of learning about the stock market, learning about what's happening in the market. And so I encourage it to really anyone, really anyone 16 and up can get benefit from it.
That's a really good
And
one.
so,
especially 16.
Yeah, so it's not
16 through 18.
It's not a competition. It's not a competition to you guys.
No, that's cool. All right, that makes it better, and I'm all for you. I'm 100% on board. I'm like, I'm 100% with you as far as like financial literacy and all those things. And
100%.
I think that's been like the one benefit of this pandemic is that like I got introduced to like a lot of different podcasts. I listen to Earn Your Leisure podcast. It's two Black guys. I think they're from New York, but they talk about all different aspects of financial literacy, investing in stocks and things of that nature. And 100%, especially in our communities, Black and brown kids, they don't learn early enough about investing. And you can work at a job for 30, 40 years and think you have enough money to retire. And if you're not, you end up not having it. So, I mean,
Right.
if you're not on top of your finances, your personal finances, your 401k, your Roth IRA, knowing about stocks and options and everything else in between, you're doing yourself a disservice. So I treat that like a job as well. Treat investing and financial literacy as like a job. So I'm glad you shared that resource with everybody. Is that free? Because I know Motley Fool, like the website is like a paid thing. Is a podcast free?
No, the podcast is free. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Motley
cool,
Fool
cool,
Money.
Cool.
It's 100% free.
All right. And they can find it on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, all the usual suspects.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they can find it wherever podcasts are available. And it's a once a week type deal. I think they come out every Friday and they just kind of talk about a week in review in terms of what's happened financially in the markets. And so it's a really good way to not only get introduced to stocks and that sort of thing, but also hear about current events and how that affects the stock market.
Gotcha.
Excellent. Well, Benga, I'll also have a final question for you. I want to give you an opportunity to shout out your own company, your own products, and what is the best way a listener could help support, get the word out on what you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, any listener can go check out my company at thenewgait.com. And that's spelled, THENEWGAIT. So that's gait as in walking gait. And on there, they can, see a wide variety of resources in terms of for folks who are looking at getting a NewGait or clinicians. If there's anyone who knows any physical therapists, we're always looking for a new physical therapist to train on the NewGait system. For those who want to directly reach out to me, my email is Benga, that's BENGA, at thenewgait.com. And so that's Benga, BEN as in Nancy, GA, at thenewgait.com.
Awesome.
All right. You got that, Andrew?
Yes, sir. And thanks for doing that, Eli. We got to give him a chance to plug the company,
Yes, absolutely.
Appreciate it. Yeah, got to give my shameless plug.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, I don't have anything else. I just really want to thank you once again for coming on and doing this. First interview. We're thinking around end of May, early June as the launch date for this episode. But I really appreciate you taking time out your day. You're a CEO of a company, full-time entrepreneur. You got a million other things you could be doing right now. You're a husband. So, I mean, you got all kinds of stuff going on. So I appreciate you taking the time to invest in us, this new podcast starting out. And if there's anything I can ever do to help you out, just let me know. I'm on board.
Yeah, I'm friending you on LinkedIn right now. And thank you for sharing your story. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to feel a kinship with you, with your story. So I hope it'll, inspire the young folk, to go for it more. I mean, that's the whole purpose of our podcast. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's really something special. We appreciate that deeply.
Yeah, no, thank you. You know, I appreciate being the first guest on the podcast, and especially a podcast that has that type of mission in terms of, you know, helping youth with STEM. And so that's something that I'm really passionate about. So appreciate being on the podcast.
Cool.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
How do you end the podcast, Andrew? Do you know how to do that?
We figuring this out. The analogy of like building a 787 in midair. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This has been our first episode of Custom Journeys. I'm co-host Andrew Baines.
I'm Eli Iglesias.
And we out.
All right.